Let's talk about some potential candidates for that offensive coordinator position. I put just a few on a graphic. There's more. I'll run down the list of names, but just a few guys who have been at least put in connection with the Browns, speculation.
Alex Van Pelt was fired, too.
He's on the list. So, Steve, let's take the list. I'll get you guys all the names in a sec, but just a couple names to keep an eye on. Tommy Rees, who's currently on the Cleveland staff. Clint Kubiak, which is spelled wrong. I will fix that for you, is the offensive coordinator in New Orleans. Bill Callahan, maybe bring him back as an offensive coordinator as a promotion. I'm just, once again, throwing names out there. Alex Van Pelt, who just was fired from New England. Josh McCown, former Browns quarterback. He's the quarterback coach with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota right now. You also have Doug Pedersen, who was just fired in Jacksonville. Thad Lewis is the Buccaneers quarterback coach, is also on the infamous Browns jersey. Hank Fraley is the Lions offensive line coach. He played for the Browns from 2006 to 2009. And Dave Ragone, who's the Rams quarterback coach and was previously the Falcons offensive coordinator. And then
St. Ignatius, bro. Shout out to Dave Ragone.
Is he a St. Ignatius guy? Didn't know that.
He's a big quarterback.
So those are just some names that have been at least thrown into the hat for potential candidates. I'm curious from you guys. Do any of them stick out? And if not necessarily a name, what qualities do you specifically think whoever the Browns hire to fill the position needs to have, non-negotiable in terms of qualities?
I love the idea of Josh McCown as the offensive coordinator. I know he doesn't have any experience. I get that. I think Kevin Stefanski's going to call the plays. But having Josh McCown work with a young quarterback, after all his years in the league, he's been a great backup, a great teammate. He's obviously done a great job. And I don't know how much of a factor he is with the Minnesota success, but that team has had a great season. Remember, he thought they would suck. And he's working with a quarterback. He's the quarterback coach for a quarterback that's had the biggest turnaround we've seen in forever in Sam Darnold after years of sucking. So I know it's maybe unconventional, but because he just played and he hasn't been a coach very long and he hasn't been an OC.
I mean, the Texans tried hiring him as a head coach a few years ago.
Yeah, I like the idea of hiring McCown as the OC and a veteran offensive line coach, a guy who's been, who's done it for many years.
And real quick on McCown, so he is the Vikings quarterbacks coach. This year he was the Panthers quarterback coach last year. And to Jason's point, he was interviewed by the Texans for a head coaching position entering the 2023 season.
Listen, I like Doug Pedersen. I like that. You know why? I know for a fact Doug Pedersen won a Super Bowl. I know for a fact that he done coached and got the best out of some quarterbacks. Old boy for the Eagles won a championship under him.
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles. I like Doug Pedersen in Jacksonville. He has head coaching pedigree. I need somebody in that role where you could bounce something off of him. You look at what Bill Callahan. Bill Callahan was a head coach in the league. Bill Callahan was a head coach in college, and he could lean on him to basically be like, go handle that. Yeah. I like Doug Pedersen because he has that CEO mentality. It gives you an opportunity to bounce some stuff off. He's been a play caller in this league as well. And I think the collaboration could work, especially if they got a younger quarterback.
I didn't even consider Bill Callahan because I assume he's not going to leave his son.
I mean, choosing Doug Pedersen.
Well, I put Callahan on it in case they were to offer the OC position, which is not what he is in Tennessee, just as a name to
right, but I don't know. I just don't think he would do it.
I would bring somebody back, but it wouldn't be Bill Callahan.
You mean AVP
back?
I think both sides have to swallow some pride.
He ain't pissed off?
I've just said both sides have to swallow some pride.
Like,
but they shouldn't have moved on from him. It was a mistake to move on from him. We said that at the time. It wound up to be accurate. They should not have moved on from him. I think Kevin would have to swallow some pride and admit that he made a mistake. I think AVP would have to swallow some ego, but I think it would work for both sides. That would be my number one. I'd call, and I don't know that he's officially been fired yet.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was reported that he was.
But I think depending on, I mean, if Mike Vrabel gets that job, maybe he wants to keep AVP.
Right.
Maybe he wants to take Tommy Rees with him, and that's where the number two on this. I don't know how they feel about Tommy Rees, but there's a lot of people around the league and around college football who love Tommy Rees. If you want to keep him, you have to promote him to OC or he will not be on the staff next year. I believe that.
I like what he did at Alabama.
So this is really, Kevin has to decide. I think one good thing that came out of this year, and there wasn't much, one good thing was Kevin now knows what it's like to be on the sideline and not call plays. So now he has to decide. Is there a play caller out there that he likes and is comfortable with and that he trusts that he could bring in to be the OC and continue to not call the plays, or will he take back play calling? I have no inside knowledge on this. I believe he will take back play calling.
What's the percentage?
60, 65, because I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm just
Right.
guessing that, like, he's going to look at this and sort of say, because I've had coaches tell me this in all different sports. If I'm going down, I'm going down doing it my way. We're going to do it my way. And so for that reason, that's why I say, this is just me talking. I think he will take play calling back and think, like, we're going to do this how I want to do this now.
Yes.
And so I've talked to people in that locker room who felt like, hey, Tommy Rees, is he ready? And the feedback I got was, I wouldn't want him as a play caller necessarily, but as the OC who's like in charge of the installation during the week, yeah, I think he's ready for that. And you saw his name come up in relation with North Carolina head coaching job before Belichick took it. You've seen his name as an OC. You're going to continue to see it. If they don't promote him, I believe he will leave and he'll get a job as an OC somewhere in the NFL. So if they really like him, they're going to have to promote him. Those would be my two. I'd either swallow pride and bring Alex back, or promote Tommy Rees to offensive coordinator. And if those two don't work out, I like Bull's option of Josh McCown. I really like that. And the Haslams have a deep affinity for Josh McCown.
I wonder if they could get. I know he's a quarterback coach, so it would be a lateral move. But I would love to, at the very least, try to get him as the quarterback coach here. The Browns haven't had a quarterback coach.
You won't. You have to promote him. You'd have to give him.
Is there a title they can give him? Assistant head coach,
offensive coordinator, and quarterback coach.
Right.
Yeah, I think Bull's saying trying to keep Rees and McCown.
Well, not necessarily Rees, but if they hired, let's say they hired AVP or Rees, and I'd still love to be able to find a way to bring McCown in also.
See, I think McCown has had enough time now as a quarterback. He's going to get an offensive coordinator job. He's respected enough around. He's sort of in that.
Right, yeah.
He's in that Tommy Rees category. He's going to be an OC somewhere now, and maybe he'll even have the opportunity to call plays. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it'd
true.
be a little surprising, but you never know.
Yeah.
If somebody wants him bad enough, they would say, "You can come here, and we'll give you play calling."
McNuggets, Lyman said something, and it stuck with me for about a couple of days now because you mentioned it. He said, like, yeah, we all know that, the Stefanski offense, we know what it can get us, right? We understand that, it can get us 8-9 wins. It's going to get the most out of the quarterback or whatever the case may be. But Lyman mentioned something, and he said, yeah, that's cool, but are we kind of throwing out there or forgetting the idea that maybe that offense needed to be upgraded when it was upgraded? Think about it. Like, okay, Flacco, it was what it was, and when we played the Texans, it didn't look as good as we thought it would be. We saw people sitting on routes and doing certain things. If we go back to that, yeah, you might be able to upgrade from what it is now. But do we still believe that eventually that type of offense can win a championship in this conference?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, let me clarify what Lyman said.
Yeah.
He wasn't necessarily talking about Stefanski's offense. He was talking about the quarterbacks in the AFC.
Right.
He said, we have to figure out, and by we, the Browns, have to figure out, what's our counter to Mahomes, Lamar,
so that's
Burrow.
the connection.
Now that's a different question.
Yes, but my connection is what a quarterback with his offense, is it good enough to win it that way?
But that actually goes all the way back to what I said about, okay, you go get Kirk Cousins, you're 8-9, 9-8. Now what's your plan after that?
Yeah, you can't win that way. I get what you're saying about Brock Purdy, and we'll see how good Brock Purdy is. He had a very good year last year. The year before this year was disappointing. They had a terrible season.
They had a ton of injuries.
Overall, the team. The Browns have had, outside of 2020, when Baker played well, the Browns have had essentially terrible quarterback play for the most part since Kevin Stefanski's been here. At best, it's been below average at times. Maybe Joe Flacco was average, and some of the stats obviously were great. Same with Winston, but it was too many turnovers by both of them. So the Browns, you can't win with a Tier 4 quarterback. You can't win with a Tier 5 quarterback.
Correct.
You can win with a Tier 2 quarterback, which I think a few years ago I didn't even think you could. Now, in my mind, there's only 4 Tier 1 quarterbacks, so maybe it's now you can win with a Tier 3 quarterback, depending on where you put the tiers. To me, it's Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, whatever order you want to put them in. That's the top group. Those are the best quarterbacks in the league.
But you could win with Jalen Hurts now.
100%. Yeah. Now, the next group of guys, yes. The question is, can you win with the third group of guys? Now,
no, I don't think so.
I don't know. I guess it depends where you start the third group of guys. Like, is Baker on the top of the third tier, or is he now on the bottom of the second tier? I guess I'd have to put him in the bottom of this, or maybe even
I'd have to look at the entire
based on
list.
this year. Based on
this year, he'd be Tier 2, but in my mind, he's still Tier 3.
Right. And the question is, can you still win with a tier 3? Can you win with quarterback, 12 to 16? I don't know yet.
You can win with Jared. Jared Goff's already taken you to Super Bowl. He's not tier 1. He's
definitely not tier 1. Yeah.
I think he's definitely
and that's
tier
the
2.
thing. But you can't. But the Browns, all their quarterbacks have been tier 4, tier 5, tier 6. You can't win with those guys no matter what the system is.
I look at, like, there's two components. There's a system and there's a quarterback. Now, is there varying degrees? Like, hey, if Kevin Stefanski's system is a tier 2 system and it can get the most out of regular guys, does that mean that if you get a guy that, is not a tier 4 guy that is in terms of talent, but maybe a tier 3 guy, could a tier 3 guy win in this system playing against some of these other quarterbacks?
I think the lower ranked the quarterback is, the better the talent around them has to be, right?
The lower ranked he is, the lower paid he better be, so that you have flexibility to build around him.
So a rookie
scale quarterback, yeah.
Like, do you think,
or you fall into a Sam Darnold type situation?
I don't, as well as Baker's played, I don't think the Bucs can win the Super Bowl.
No. Nobody's picking the Bucs to win the Super Bowl.
No.
Now, and I don't even.
No one's picking the Bucs to go to the Super Bowl.
I'm not even saying that's Baker's fault. I mean, I don't think the team around. I mean, their defense is not that good. They played in a weak division. He played very well. Still too many turnovers, second in the league. But and maybe that's going to cost them in the playoffs. But if you put Baker on, with a defense like the Browns had last year, could he win the Super Bowl? I don't know. I'm not sure. I thought he couldn't. Now I'll say I'll open up the possibility maybe he can. I don't think he can this year.
The question, because Jason said it earlier, now I'm thinking about it. What is the goal? Before, when we tore it down to the studs or we got rid of Baker, it was because we wanted to win at the highest level. Just winning those games right there, competitive, was not what we were wanting to do. Now, you're at that point again. What is your goal?
Yeah.
Do you want to be 8-9 or whatever?
Yeah.
Or do you want, because you could win 8-9 games, like you said, and with a bridge quarterback or somebody who's decent with this offense, and you could have some fun going to the games, but is that going to win given the climate of where we are today?
No, not in the long term. You might be competitive for 1 year. You might make the playoffs. But the Browns won't consistently win until they get it right at the position. I mean, it's that simple. It doesn't mean you won't have a good year like they did last year. But you can't consistently win until you – but by the way, for next year, it's possible, whether it's Kirk Cousins or another veteran, like let's say they draft Shedeur Sanders at 2. Well, they still might be better off getting a veteran and letting the veteran play for the first year.
Yeah.
Or at least to start the season at the very least.
That makes logical sense.
Yeah.
That never happens. It rarely happens. If you're taking a guy top 2, typically they're playing day one.
Or that guy, or the bridge guy has to be playing like Sam Darnold.
Since Baker sat, have there been any, I don't remember, did Stroud play right away in Houston?
Yes.
Played right away, yeah.
I can't think of another one that didn't play.
But there's been top 10, top 12 quarterbacks that have sat.
I'm not talking you said Shedeur. You got to take him at 2.
Fair. Yeah,
if you're taking a guy 1 or 2, to me, I think Baker's the last one that didn't play right away.
I'll look that up. While I'm looking that up, I want to mention one other guy here because I put a poll in our chat of these candidates, who do you like the most? And Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator in New Orleans, according to the chat, had over 45% of the vote.
I wonder why.
Famous. Now, Stefanski comes from his father's system,
Right.
so there's the family connection to Kubiak's.
Right.
He was mentioned last year as a potential offensive coordinator candidate before they hired Ken Dorsey.
Yeah.
You guys' thoughts on Clint Kubiak real quick as I look up to see if any other quarterback hadn't started since
he didn't have success this year, but the Saints didn't have a lot of talent.
You know the great part about this is I'm not going to have a strong opinion on anything that they do either way. If they want to hire whoever they're going to hire at coordinator, I'm not going to sit up here and say that's the wrong decision, or if they want whatever they do in the draft, because to me, this offseason is going to be about different ideas. I don't have a great idea on what they're doing with none of this. Like, there's a bunch of ways they can go at coordinator, coaches, draft, roster, free agency. I think this is going to be a bunch of ideas that we kind of throw at the board and kind of talk about, but I don't have no strong conviction either way on what they want to pick. They just have to own what they do.
As pissed as we've all been, I'm looking forward to this offseason more than I have in a long time.
Way more.
For years, every year we were talking about the draft and the quarterback and
moving and
this
shaking.
Is the first time in years we're talking about a quarterback in the draft for the Browns.
You got
years.
Quarterback. You got a top 5 pick, top 3 pick. You got
two.